The Taoiseach says climate change is contributing to human suffering through conflicts and weather disasters. However, Micheál Martin told COP27 he believes this generation has the power to leave a positive legacy and bring about a sustainable planet. He says today's leaders cannot waste another second in addressing climate change.
Across the world, we are witnessing the reality of a changing climate. Record temperatures, wildfires, floods and droughts. What were once exceptional events are now occurring with increased frequency and ferocity.
The head of the INMO says the level of indignity facing patients in emergency departments would not be accepted in any other country. It's after new figures show over 100,000 people have been left waiting on trolleys or seats so far this year. General Secretary of the Irish Nurses and Midwives Organisation, Phil Hay, says conditions are worsening by the day.
Behind each of those numbers is an absolute miserable period of time for people who are very sick, requiring healthcare, and who have to wait for up to 20 hours in some cases to be seen initially, and then have a further wait up to 4 days in some cases to get a bed.
In the US, voting is continuing in the midterm elections. The first results are expected in the early hours of tomorrow morning, which could see Democrat Joe Biden lose many of his supporters in Congress. It comes amid speculation former President Donald Trump will announce in the coming days he will run for the White House again in 2024. US correspondent with the Business Post, Marion McKeown, says it's very early to tell if Trump could win.
A lot can happen in 2 years, but certainly, Donald Trump is all over this midterm. It would have been, I think it probably is, should be still a referendum on Joe Biden, but I think for a lot of people it's much more of a referendum on Donald Trump, and people are turning out in huge numbers, and I suspect that's part of the reason.
And there's going to be a second series of dark comedy Bad Sisters. Apple TV Plus says it's renewed the show about a group of sisters under investigation for the death of their brother-in-law. It's written by Sharon Horgan, who also stars in it, alongside Anne-Marie Duff, Sarah Green and Eve Hewson. And that's it for now. More at 8.
News Talk weather.
Thanks to Ryanair. Need a birthday gift she love? Ryanair gift cards. The perfect gift for lovers.
Showers will continue tonight, easing slightly. Lowest temperatures of 5 to 8 degrees in moderate southwesterly winds. And now you're up to date on News Talk.
The Newsround on Off the Ball.
With Gillette, in association with Movember. Effortless shave, magnificent mo.
This is News Talk.
You're welcome along. Tuesdays Off the Ball. Brian O'Driscoll will be in studio this hour between 8 and 9. There'll be a slight tangent. Myself and Will and Mick and Arthur coming at you. Dan McDonnell on the football show talking about a whole host of things. FAI Cup final media day today. Martin O'Neill's comments about feeling very much like he was treated like an outsider and a northerner as Ireland manager. 53106 the text number. We're at Off the Ball on Twitter. Michael here in studio now, and on a slight tangent, it's a double helping of Mick McCarthy
all over this show.
Hello. So what's going on? What's catching your eye?
In the world of sport today, Joe. I don't know. I think I'll let Richie tell me, and then
Richie, hello to you.
Evening, gents. How are we?
Well, what's catching your eye, Richie?
What is catching my eye? I don't know. It's been interesting to watch, and I'll get to it in the newsround, I guess. All of the talk around the World Cup, and a lot of it seems to be coming to a head, and not in a good way. I guess peaked today by Sepp Blatter coming out and saying that it is a mistake that the World Cup is being held in Qatar. This is the man, of course, who was in charge of FIFA in 2010 when it was announced. And his reasoning as well is amazing. And to be fair, he's not wrong. But he doesn't make a single mention of Qatar's human rights records, the fact that they are very, very, very anti-homosexual in that country, as was witnessed by a World Cup ambassador's own remarks just today. But he says that the World Cup, contrary to Richard Key's explanation, is too big to be held in Qatar. That Qatar is too small to be staging such a tournament, and that's why it's a mistake.
I look forward to the Keys Slams Blatter blog. Imminent.
I can see
splatter.
On my balcony.
Yeah. For me, it's clear, said Sepp Blatter talking to Swiss newspaper. For me, it's clear. Qatar, a mistake. The choice was bad, is what he says.
His choice.
Well, he doesn't. He goes on to blame Michel Platini. Pretty much, he points the finger at Platini and his machinations behind the scene, which included conversations with Nicolas Sarkozy, who was French president at the time. And he puts the blame for that squarely at their door, saying that it was their votes that ultimately swung things in favour of Qatar away from, I think it was Australia who were second in the votes. Korea were possibly third. But it's Platini's fault, according to Sepp. So their future court dates will probably be interesting.
He really does go after Platini. So even some of the quotes here, he says, he goes on to outline the many reasons. It's too small a country, football, the World Cup, too big for it. He does, to be fair, he does reference social considerations, and so by that he is talking about LGBTQ rights and I would think as well the migrant workers' rights. But he doesn't get into that in any great detail. He just says social considerations, which is a nicely phrased way of referencing all that awfulness. And then he says, how did this happen is the obvious question then, if you didn't think it was the right thing. He said it was thanks to the 4 votes of Platini and his UEFA team that the World Cup went to Qatar rather than the United States. So in Sepp's eye, this was going to be Russia, then the United States. As he says, his words, he really had a good feel for what was going on with all these countries. It would have been a gesture of peace if the 2 long-standing political opponents had hosted the World Cup one after another. So that was Sepp's vision. So he says of Platini that thanks to his votes, the World Cup went to Qatar rather than the United States. It's the truth, said Blatter. I think anytime anyone says it's the truth at the end of their claim, that's a moment to pause.
Yeah.
So he goes on to say, Platini had told me he'd been invited to the Elysee Palace, where then French President Sarkozy had just had lunch with the Crown Prince of Qatar. Sarkozy said to Platini, see what you and your colleagues from UEFA can do for Qatar when the World Cup is awarded. I then asked Michel how. According to Blatter, Platini's response was, Sepp, what would you do if your president asked you for something? I then told him that the question didn't arise from me because we didn't have a president in Switzerland. So he took that a touch too literally, but that was his response.
Jesus Christ! I'm sorry. I understand why this is interesting, but I'm just finding it so hard to play along with the farce of Sepp Blatter calling out, decrying the disgrace of where World Cup is going and blaming, someone else who he's, accusing of being corrupt. It's like, what kind? Like, this is high farce. Sepp Blatter.
Yeah. Well, that's his story and he's sticking to it. And obviously the Qatari-Sarkozy links are well established, and I'm sure Sarkozy was doing his best for Qatar, and it seems Sepp was powerless to stop Platini.
Poor Sepp. Yeah, I like his kind of Swiss diplomacy of Russia and then USA.
I know.
Because having a World Cup 4 years apart would really bring 2 countries together. Also, in 2010 or whenever this was happening, were relations between Russia and the US all that bad?
No, they weren't what they certainly are now, and they weren't what they were, say, in 1980. So where he's pulling this idea out of, I'm not quite sure.
Probably a high point considering
the history. Yeah, not too far off.
The Newsround is brought to you with Gillette in association with Movember. Effortless shave, magnificent mow. You can sign up or donate now at Movember.com. Richie, you are starting with Cian Healy.
Yeah, the Ireland squad trained today ahead of Saturday's second autumn test with Fiji. Arnie Farrell working with a squad of 39 after a number of players returned to their squads, provinces that is, particularly Munster ahead of their game with South Africa. Farrell has no new injury concerns going into the Fiji test, but there are likely to be a number of changes. One of them likely to see Cian Healy start at loosehead, and the 35-year-old was asked today how this Ireland squad compares to others of which he's been part.
This is probably one of the most enjoyable squads I've been in across the board from the beginning. It's cultured around people being themselves and allowed to express themselves, working unbelievably hard when we're working and enjoying each other's company when we're off. And I think what the coaches and staff have done is really good, in a sense that it takes the anxieties out of unnecessary areas for us, and when that's gone, all we have to do as players is do our detail work, and that's done in a positive way because we're sitting with each other doing it. People aren't sitting in their room reviewing on their own, worrying about things. We chat through things. Everything is an open forum, and I think all of that sort of stuff just leads really well into people being comfortable and everyone feeling like they're a real part of what's going on.
It's very interesting, isn't it? That notion of being on your own, worrying about things, reviewing tape in the previous culture. I know, I was about to say there is a book to be written on what was so unenjoyable about the culture previously.
Yeah.
We get snippets, I mean, we hear things, and you know, this story that I'm about to mention was told almost as a tribute to Joe Schmidt's attention to detail, whereby someone had dropped their room key and he brings it to the meeting and says, who dropped the room key? And drop a room key, you'll drop a ball. And again, that was, you had to be on your toes. But you listen to the way the players talk about the current environment. And Cian Healy, well, Peter O'Mahony, even when he wasn't in the side, was saying it was incredibly enjoyable. Conor Murray was saying similar things. Even Cian Healy, who's now out of the team, is saying this is the most enjoyable time I've had as part of an Irish camp.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And it was the thing that we, like, do you remember going back to, you know, behind closed doors games? What was the name of that weird competition that we had in the summer? I can't even remember. Like, it's actually gone.
The Rainbow Cup?
No, that was club. I actually can't even.
The international one?
Yeah, the international one. But do you remember, like, things weren't going great for Ireland, and there was a sense with Andy Farrell as, like, he's taking the shackles off too much. And there isn't enough there, and like what was actually happening there was there was a kind of a sense of, guys, come in. This is a different situation here, but the work and the groundwork was being done there, and I think we can see the fruits of it now. It is interesting. There's times when I hear these interviews and how often they speak about it now, and I start to feel quite sorry for Joe Schmidt and his place in Irish rugby history. It is three championships and his Grand Slam, and it's not as if Joe Schmidt was some rube who didn't get the best out of these players.
Sure,
it just we did need evolution, and we just needed to move on to a new thing. And look, it's good that the players are enjoying it while in no way dropping their standards. If anything, they've upped them. It's a really, really good sign for the Andy Farrell regime and how he coaches.
Yeah, just a cue players at the moment to say it's never been better.
It's constant, isn't it? It's almost every single, like, I know people always talk up what they're currently in,
sure,
both by human nature and just kind of like looking after the current group. But
no, it's quite
more
noticeable.
than usual.
Yeah. But I do take your point. If we were to go back and let's dig out a clip of Cian Healy asked 7 years ago, are you enjoying Ireland camp under Joe Schmidt? Yeah, it's incredible. It's a great time.
Yeah.
So there is
we offload loads. We're allowed whenever we want.
So Pep Linders was speaking today.
Yeah, he was in front of the media rather than Jurgen Klopp ahead of their Carabao Cup tie tomorrow night. And Liverpool assistant manager insists speculation over the possible sale of the club hasn't been a distraction for himself or indeed Klopp. Owners Fenway Sports Group have confirmed that they will consider new shareholders if it's in the team's best interest, and Linders says they have been kept well informed about developments and is sure what they have said in that statement yesterday is accurate.
So Rich, we've mentioned Blatter and his pointing the finger at Platini. You referenced as well one of the World Cup ambassadors. So the ambassadors include Xavi, they include Cafu, and there's a former Qatari player who was being interviewed on German television today.
Yeah, Khalid Salman, a Qatar World Cup ambassador, has been criticised for describing homosexuality as damage in the mind. The former Qatar international made the comments in an interview with the German broadcaster ZDF. LGBT representative at Human Rights Watch, Rasha Yunus, says the comments were harmful and unacceptable.
Just the tone you want.
It's
2 weeks out.
Absolutely shocking. Like, you know, and fine, individual Egypt makes comment on radio, it's not the end of the world, but if anything, just like everything just continuously undermining this World Cup, and I don't mean to be keeping going on about it, I'm sick of listening to myself about it, but do you know, I was just thinking a few minutes ago, even when we were talking about Blatter, and even again here, was like, even though we talked about it all weekend, and you guys talked about it in the Sunday paper review, it was all over the Sunday papers, I still don't think enough has been made of how disgraceful FIFA's comment was on Friday, you know, to stick to the football, and their letter to all the countries. Sorry, I wasn't explaining that properly for anyone who hadn't heard. They wrote a letter to all the countries involved saying stick to the football, that's what it's about, don't be getting political. Like, every story you hear is, you know, what about this World Cup is just the idea that an organisation can say, hold on, the football is more important, this is what we're here for, we talk about football, that's more important than 6,000 lives, that's more important than human rights, that's more important than, you know, a ban on homosexuality. You know, it's I actually can't get over it in 2022 how we kind of just went, that's FIFA.
Yeah, this is not to excuse FIFA, but I guess it's interesting to try and hazard a guess as to what's going on there. I suspect internally they are just so overwhelmed with the mountain of criticism over the last number of years that there's nobody inside thinking straight anymore. I'd say that letter that you referenced to the 32 federations taking part, that no one within FIFA at a certain level was able to say, that's actually a terrible idea, this is not going to play well, would suggest nobody in there is thinking in any way clearly. I think they just...
Yeah,
the fog of just being under massive criticism for
I think that's
years.
probably true, but it was one of the most cynical things I've ever come across. And again, it's not new news to be bringing it up on the Wednesday or the Tuesday after it was on the Friday before, but every time I hear a story, it's all I can think of. It's like, I can't believe they did that. Can't believe they did it.
Yeah, it's such a bad move.
Bad and wrong, like both, you know.
Oh, everything about this is wrong, but this was...
It was also stupid.
Just strategically, it was such a terrible move as well. Like, they can't do anything right. It's unbelievable.
Seemingly, yeah.
Meanwhile, Rich, there's an Ecuador story brewing. I remember Tim Vickery spoke to us about this a while back.
Yeah. This week was always going to be the decision week for it, but Ecuador will play at the World Cup despite a dispute over the nationality of one of their players. The Court of Arbitration for Sport has ruled that Byron Castillo is Ecuadorian despite claims that he was ineligible because he wasn't born in the country. Peru had looked to get into the tournament ahead of Ecuador because of this. Ecuador, though, have been fined 100,000 Swiss francs for the use of what's called a document containing false information, and they've been docked 3 points from their next qualification campaign, but they will play in the tournament's opening game on Sunday week.
Carabao Cup?
Yeah, Irish duo Mark Kennedy and Graham Coughlin plotting Carabao Cup upsets tonight. Kennedy's Lincoln City go to Ashton Gate to play Bristol City, while Coughlin's Newport County of League 2 are away to Premier League side Leicester City. There's an all-Premier League meeting of Bournemouth and Everton at the Vitality. Elsewhere, Brentford entertain Gillingham. League 2 strugglers Crawley go to Championship leaders Burnley. MK Dons play Morecambe, and Stevenage face Charlton Athletic.
Now, lots of people who bought tickets to Republic of Ireland, Norway, breathing sigh of relief.
Yeah, for how long I don't know, but Erling Haaland has been included in the Norway squad to face the Republic of Ireland at the Aviva on Thursday next. The free-scoring striker missed recent Manchester City games with a foot injury, but scored on his return to the side of the weekend. City boss Pep Guardiola says Haaland is still not fully fit, but he won't stand in his way of joining up with that Norway squad.
Joe, people are going...
It's not perfect still, it's not perfect. So we'll see tomorrow, next Saturday, but it's getting better. So important, the bone is not broken, so it's not damaged. Just the ligament damaged a little bit, so it's not perfect right now. So, but I don't know, in 1 week, 10 days, everything can happen, can change.
So then how satisfied are you with him going to play 2 friendlies?
If he feels good, he play the national team is so important for the players. I never avoid to the players when they are fit to play with the national team.
It is easier to release him when there's a month break followed by the international friendly.
Yeah. I don't know if that stands up to scrutiny from Guardiola, and I actually don't know, like legitimately, as to whether he would have a problem with them playing 2 friendlies, or that understands the importance of playing for the national team. But I think that the people who've bought tickets for Ireland and Norway are going to see Ireland, Joe.
No, I know that
we've got real fans in this country. We don't go and see the opposition.
I get that. Are you telling me no one there thought, Haaland, I'll go along for a look? Not one. That's the only reason Richie's bringing his...
No, we've talked about it before, sure. Obviously there's something kind of unique about that opportunity to see a player like that, but
I'm not saying Richie's going to be cheering Haaland
boys
on.
in green, like, you know.
I might. Don't speak for me, Joe, please.
His son will.
I could be cheering on Erling Haaland. Yeah.
Come on, Erling.
Just Erling, nobody else.
Oh yeah. We are shorter and sweeter than usual this evening, Richie, so we're done. Thank you.
Nice, lads.
Mick, thanks very much.
See you later.
Your chance to win big. News Talk's cash machine.
Somebody missed a chance to win today when they missed the call, which means we have a